We've diagnosed thousands of sales pipelines, and it's the equivalent of a doctor who has seen thousands of patients over 10 or 20 years. You see big patterns and often fairly straightforward answers. We've seen, therefore, using first-hand data, why great companies struggle to set a consistent pace of growth. The usual conclusion is that the company has a poor sales process. But it's the wrong answer, and it's also the complicated answer. Growth depends largely on following one or two big metrics that direct our judgment, investments, and actions. What's needed is a high standard of measurement and governance called the Green Zone Standard that drives high personal and team performance. It's part of a sales architecture you can implement within the next 4 weeks and start seeing revenue benefits within 8 weeks. There are no complex processes nor procedures, and it's a joint sales team and senior leadership initiative. Companies go through a sales life cycle. We call it the sales maturity cycle or model. Growth stalls in stage 2 because it's dependent on individual personalities and their idea of what their role is. No matter how many times you change personnel, results stay flat. If you want to grow or scale, your senior leadership needs to move the business to the sales architecture stage. The ultimate destination is the unstoppable stage, where the team starts to drive new standards. There are 2 parts to a sales architecture: governance and execution, or execution is also called enablement nowadays. An architecture is meant to be prescriptive enough to give direction, but flexible enough to absorb individual execution. It is not the same as a sales process, which is far more rigid and less effective. You only need to do the sales governance piece once, but crucially, it's done through the senior leadership team, SLT, and not just in the sales function. Otherwise, the impact will, like so many sales initiatives, be short-lived. You want governance to become a driver of weekly momentum. The governance then drives the execution. A sales architecture changes the language of the sales operation and the way the rest of the business talks about and interacts with sales. When you change the language, you change the messaging. When you improve the internal messaging, you improve external sales execution. We're all used to hearing about targets, gaps, and pipeline coverage. Sound sales governance uses the language of distance to revenue. It measures how far the projected revenue for the month or quarter has to travel. It transforms bad forecasting into accurate forecasts and has a game-changing effect on identifying and managing risk to income. When the distance to revenue is at its shortest, the seller or team is operating in the green zone. When the distance to revenue is impossible, they are in the red zone. Most sales teams run on red and produce those infamous peaks and troughs of income. Even getting into the middle zone, amber, will bring immediate revenue gains. We recommend you implement the distance to revenue reporting through the office of the CFO. This is really a company standard that everyone on the senior leadership team, middle management, and the sales organization support. It's this company-wide approach that changes the status of sales in the company. Distance to revenue that is of the green standard is built through the momentum of the weekly sales meeting, especially the one-to-one. Notice that this salesperson is on red, and it's the middle of the month. They might still make the target, but if they're still in red next week, the target and income will be at high risk. This is far more powerful than looking at numbers with stories attached. Think about it. Do I want to come back to you as my manager next week and the week after, in 2 months' time, and still be stuck on red? This green zone standard, combined with the weekly meeting, also tests for who on the team is willing to raise their own performance, the performance that eliminates the peaks and troughs that act like a silent killer in the background of otherwise strong businesses. The sales architecture approach uses what we call the pull-through model. There's only one command: stay in the green zone. There are many ways to get there, whether prescribed by the company or developed by the individual salesperson. Now, execution is usually associated with training and tools and content. Most companies have all of these, but the salesperson has no personal plan. A key part of the sales architecture approach is the individual salesperson developing their own go-to-market plan. It should be a slip or a cut off the company's go-to-market framework. A good example would be a 4-part plan covering data, messaging, content, and metrics. This can be framed in a 1-page Word document, or we can provide a tool that captures everything, including but especially the messaging and content parts. When you get this right, the plan and the tools become addictive, and that's what you want. That's what gets salespeople jumping out of bed early in the morning, because now they can attach their earning capacity to a proven plan backed by the company. You won't stay in the sales architecture stage for long. Once it's done, it's done. The team begins to experience the benefits of working in a framework designed to help them be successful. So they bring you the unstoppable stage. The team sets new standards and personal bests at least once a quarter, and the troughs turn into peaks. 2 sellers at this level will outperform 4 and 5, or 6 will easily outperform 10. Capability outperforms capacity every time. You can build, implement, and begin to see the results of a sales architecture program within 8 weeks. The first 4 weeks involves defining the common language, aligning the CRM, and putting the reporting and governance structures in place. And the team needs to be trained in the architecture. But within 4 weeks, the salespeople are already working on their personal go-to-market plan, designed to build short, medium, and long-term pipelines. And in the meantime, they've also started to produce much more accurate forecasts. Already, the sales team is starting to give the business new confidence. We also recommend you use OKRs, objectives and key results, to drive quarterly momentum.